Welcome to the Total Soccer Show and our review of the Champions League quarter-final first legs, in which Real Madrid looked good and they were certainly trying, but they were undone by a magnificent Bayern. Barcelona went a man down and Atleti pulled off the shock of the round. Arsenal were a bit bland, but they left Lisbon with the upper hand. And Liverpool having a pretty rough week, while PSG were magnifique. My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today, hello Taylor Rockwell, how are you?
I'm doing really well, my friend. These games were awesome. I loved watching them. I'm excited to get to talk about them. But I think my favorite experience of the week was getting to picture Graham trying to sneakily watch these games and still message us about them while on vacation. I am assuming he snuck away from his wife and child having good time family fun to just crawl under a machine somewhere and watch Bayern on half a screen as fast as he could.
Yeah, Graham Rusman away on a well-earned vacation at the moment, as you say, Taylor, and still contributing to our Slack chat about the games and clearly watching them all. What if it's his family who are just watching them and he has to sort of watch along with them? What if it's that?
Join us, Father. Just patting the couch, Simpson style.
Join us, Father. Really Sporting Lisbon are still drawing with Arsenal.
I really enjoyed Joe basically saying, Graham, go outside and touch grass. No response to that one, just more thoughts on Barca, Atleti, and Liverpool's performance or lack thereof.
Yeah, there you go. Hello, Joe Lowery, how are you? Of course, he can't touch grass where he is in the Canary Islands. He'll be touching volcanic sand, I imagine.
Gotta watch out for that. Might be allergic, Graham Ruthven. I assume Graham's just sort of allergic to the outdoors. Yeah, Taylor, you're spot on with that response. Graham was the one driving the convo in our Champions League Slack channel. And I said to Graham, quote, Graham, stop watching soccer and go outside. You and Ryan both gave me a ha-ha emoji. Graham did not respond to my message in any way and just went, Atleti, after they scored another goal and continued along his current path. Never change, Graham. Or actually, you should change just a little. Just go outside.
You should definitely
I know you're listening to this right now because you put those little things on the screen, and I know you're still editing. Graham, I know you're watching this. I know. I'm looking at you in the eyes right now. Go outside.
Oh, wow. Audience of one. I like it. Very good. If you'd like to get our bonus content featuring Graham when he's not, or maybe while he's on vacation, you can go to patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. Bonus episodes, bonus video, access to our Discord server where, how many is it? Oh, it's all the cool kids. All the cool kids are hanging out in our Discord server. Do check us out. And we've got the TSS Scouting Network as well. If you've ever wanted to scout a player, here is your opportunity. We can assign you one. You can assign yourself one. Join the TSS Scouting Network. Lots of fun to be had. And it must be said once again that we are doing it live. It's official. On the opening night of the World Cup, June 11th, we will be in Los Angeles, California for Total Soccer Show World Cup Live at the El Rey Theater. Link in the show notes if you'd like to get a ticket and join us there. Wonderful stuff. All right, let's get to the Champions League action, shall we? Real Madrid 1, Bayern Munich 2. Joe, this was a brilliant, fun game of soccer. Luis Diaz and Harry Kane with the Bayern goals here, and Mbappe with the late consolation. Harry Kane marking his injury comeback with that goal as well. Manuel Neuer, 56 years old, the star of the show, with his man of the match performance here as well. Some excellent saves in this one. I think what I liked about this, Joe, is that it was a very even contest. I don't think anyone would have complained if Real Madrid had come out winners as instead of Bayern, but also that Bayern, they just went for it. They went for it from the outset, away from home. That was great.
Huge contrast, I think, between this game and the other three in terms of the openness of them all. And that's not to say that one is right or one is wrong, but clearly one of those approaches is more entertaining to watch for the neutral than the other. And this game embodied the openness really from both teams, where we saw Real Madrid go with Kylian Mbappe and Vinicius Jr. up top, and that means that they are inherently going to be a little bit more open because we know the lack of defensive work that those two are going to bring to the table. And Bayern Munich, I just don't think they have another level to them that isn't being reasonably open. I mean, you look at how this team plays. Michael Olise, ostensibly the right winger in this game, and that is where he spent most of his time just terrorizing Carreras. I mean, unbelievable stuff. We had a lot of winger on fullback crime on this Champions League match day. He was on the right side. You know where else he was? In between the center backs, picking up the ball. Michael Olise just moving around the field. You had Serge Gnabry rotating and shifting and picking up all these different spaces. Harry Kane, we know how he interprets the number 9 position. There is so much fluidity and interchanging in this Bayern team. It's dazzling to watch. And the players, I mean, Olise in particular, he just doesn't make bad decisions. It seems like every time he touches the ball, he is doing the most efficient and effective thing possible. He was a delight in this game. That Harry Kane finish is so incredibly good. Bayern's attack was flowing. Real Madrid's was as well, Ryan, and you're spot on with the fact that they had enough chances to win this game as well. And they made poor use of some of those chances, which is just what happens over a 90-minute game sometimes. But this was, I think, by far, the best game of this quarterfinal leg one set.
Yep, totally agree with everything both of you have already said. And I'll just add, I forget sometimes that Vincent Kompany, like strange as it might sound, played for so long with Pep Guardiola and Manchester City that there's going to be a little bit of that Pep identity baked into him, maybe a lot bit of that Pep identity. And I think that was very much on display. There was no bunkering. There was no sitting off. There was no inviting Real Madrid onto Bayern. It was just back and forth. There were so many times when Bayern would have an attack that Madrid would then counter, that Bayern would then counter, and it just kept going back and forth at this incredibly blistering pace. And I thought for all the world that one of them would eventually try to slow it down, and it felt like neither one wanted to, and they just kind of kept going for it. And I think you're absolutely right that there's so many chances throughout this one. It could have gone either way. I still think Bayern are probably the deserved victors because I felt like they were maybe slightly stronger in the first half, and then it was maybe more neutral in the second half. But I'm open to discussion about that one because either way, it was just wildly entertaining.
Taylor, question for you. If you were composing an elite European side right now and you had to have the front line of either one of these teams, your Kane, your Elise, and your Luis Diaz, or your Vinicius, your Mbappe, and I suppose Valverde, who are you going with?
So it's a really interesting question, not just because it gets to something that I find interesting, but also it's just an interesting idea in the first place, Ryan. The interesting X factor for me is Luis Diaz, who's somebody who I think I felt like, and I will admit wrongly, was basically oh, he's kind of not good enough for Liverpool anymore. He's being sold on to Bayern. It feels like a step down, but just going from the Premier League to the Bundesliga. And then watching him recently, I just forget that he is an incredible footballer. He is so good. His first touch is so good. His vision is excellent. The way he can set up the second touch with the first touch to then have the second touch take him in a completely different direction, but then play a reverse pass with his third touch. It's just so difficult to defend him individually, which is my way of setting up that if, I think especially Jamal Musiala is starting, which obviously he does not in this game. I thought Gnabry was excellent, but that front four of Musiala, Luis Diaz, Harry Kane, and I'm going to try to give him the French pronunciation, which I think we've been doing wrong, but Olise, I think he is incredible. Joe's already spotlighted him. I miss that he is a Ballon d'Or shortlist candidate, and I think that is very much justified for how strong he has been this season. The Real Madrid front line is insane and so talented and features so many heavyweight players and heavyweight kind of titans of attack. But the Bayern one just feels so well blended and well versed in how they want to play and how they want to score. They know when to pass. They know when to shoot. They know where their teammates are going to be. It's pretty elite, that Bayern attack.
I do want to spotlight the Real Madrid attack just for a minute because I think
that's probably
there is...
fair.
Everything you said there, Taylor, I think is fascinating. Maybe bar the Ballon d'Or thing, which, Rio Ferdinand, et cetera, et cetera. Ballon d'Or? I'm going to walk carefully around the Ballon d'Or badge on the floor and make sure everybody knows it, so I'm going to do it in a performative way. On the Real Madrid side of things, I think the encouragement for them in this game is that Mbappe and Vinicius Jr. looked effective, and they looked effective together in a way that I haven't seen for Real Madrid in a while. I know that Kylian Mbappe's had his injury problems as well, right? But I thought that those two with Mbappe and Vinny as the front two, and you had Valverde on the right side of midfield, you had Arda Güler on the other side. Every time I watch Arda Güler, by the way, I get more scared about this summer for the USMNT. But when I watched this team play, it looked like Mbappe and Vinicius were more connected both to each other and to the team than I recalled seeing. And so many of the key moments for Real Madrid, unsurprisingly, I suppose, but came through not just one of Mbappe or Vinicius Jr., but came through both of them throughout this match. You had Real Madrid countering through Kylian Mbappe, and in general, Bayern were the ones in control in the early stages of this game. Madrid were happier to set a lower line of confrontation and go on transition. Mbappe and Güler were working together well in those moments. You had Mbappe and Vinicius and Fede Valverde combining and creating some of these looks. Vinicius Jr. drawing fouls, and I thought he was really sharp in this game. There were a lot of those moments. I think almost all of Real Madrid's best moments in this game came from one or both of those players either working together or working in tandem with another Real Madrid player. And that just has not always been the case for Real Madrid, to the point where we were talking when Mbappe was out earlier in this Champions League run. this team looks more cohesive. They look better without Mbappe because they have enough star talent outside of Mbappe that they don't absolutely need him to manufacture chances. Now he's back in the team, and Vinicius Jr.'s there too, and it didn't look as awkward as I sort of remembered or expected. And I think that's part of how they created so many chances. Now, there are defensive knock-ons, as we've already mentioned, of having those guys on the field together. But they were in this game, Real Madrid. I think you could probably say they were second fiddle, not by a huge margin, but by a notable margin. But there's many worlds in which they win this game or it's level, and going to the second leg, they feel pretty good about themselves.
I think, agreed, Joe. I think one difference, because like I go back to maybe PSG, for example, when they have like the Messi, Neymar, Mbappe combo. And obviously that's three players then not kind of contributing defensively. But I don't think of Neymar at that point as being like the fleetest of foot, ditto for Lionel Messi. And I think that is a difference for me, is that with Vinicius and Mbappe, if you leave them unattended, if you don't have kind of people there dealing with them, they are going to score goals. They are going to beat you for speed. You are going to be in trouble. And so in that way, those two players can, I think, keep defenses just that little bit more honest, because Bayern, every time they would try to push up, had that threat of the vertical ball over the top, and specifically Dayo Upamecano trying to defend the vertical ball over the top, and how risky that can sometimes be. So that felt like a recipe for the good chaos that we got in this game, but also I think made up for some of that lack of defensive contribution. By contrast, Bayern, like, just to give them their flowers on the defensive side of things for a moment, the other thing that I was struck by is how like disciplined they are. I'm not going to say well drilled necessarily. Obviously they are, but it's not as though there's this like elaborate defensive system or like that is the priority when it comes to the training, the way maybe it is with like Atleti. But I think the awareness of the developing threat is such a key thing for Bayern, especially defending a team like Real Madrid. And there's a moment in the, looking up my notes very briefly, 25th minute, Bayern cough up possession in Real Madrid's like defensive third. Madrid break very quickly, and Konrad Laimer is immediately on his horse, and it's a 70-yard sprint to get back into position, and then moments later he ends up putting in a block, I think, that goes out for a corner, but it was a really good shooting opportunity. And if he's not switched on, if he's kind of sitting there frustrated that the pass didn't come and just hanging out for a minute and then gets back into position, but like at 70% speed, that's probably a goal. And to have that level of awareness and kind of discipline, I think, was the difference maker for Bayern Munich in this game. So credit to them for that. Credit to Vincent Kompany for that, a manager I haven't always given credit to at times.
Very much so. Taylor, by the way, please don't call Harry Kane a horse. I don't think he likes it. He's got a long face. That's can't help it.
He is. He's like a horse. I can't even figure it out. A robot horse? I don't know. He's so automatic in the way he finishes. It's up there. Like, it's basically him and Lewandowski, I think, are the two. Probably Kane more so, though Lewandowski can score with body parts without even knowing that he's shooting, as we saw this past weekend. But the way Kane bends that ball like around the defender but tucks it in just perfectly inside the post, past the outstretched gloves of the goalkeeper, it's just an automatic finish. You expect him to finish that every time. It's telling that when he doesn't finish those, it is much more notable than when he does, because he is that consistent and just that strong for Bayern, and obviously coming back and scoring a goal really emphasizes that.
And Joe, as we've established, a very fun, open game. It's the kind of game that if I had a friend who hadn't watched soccer before or wasn't familiar with the game, I'd say, watch this one. This is the one that should show you.
Is it always like this?
This is what it is always like at the top level.
Sure.
Yeah,
Looks like Arsenal, right? Everybody else.
Don't watch the Arsenal game. Just watch this one. This one's great. What are our chances, Joe, of us getting this kind of open fun in the second leg as well? Do we think the hatches are going to be battened down a little bit more in leg two?
No, I really don't think so. I don't, like I said earlier, I think Bayern, this is just who they are, and it's spectacular to watch. No, we could see some personnel changes from Bayern Munich. I think they're the left side dynamic where you had Konrad Laimer and Luis Diaz. I think that could improve, but honestly in a way that makes Bayern even more effective in the attack. Alphonso Davies, I think, is just a more natural fit on that left side as an outside back. I mean, that's just not really Leimer's best role. I think Leimer's more of a utility man at this level than he is a knockout starting level player. And so I think if you get Davies there, then Diaz has a little bit more freedom, and Davies, frankly, has lots of freedom there as well. But that's not going to make Bayern tighter, really. That's going to make them more open. And I think they're completely fine with that, because if they had to answer the question you asked Taylor earlier, Ryan, about which attack would you take, they would answer their own. And I think they'd be quite justified in doing so. And I don't think Real Madrid have any choice but to have Mbappe and Vinicius Jr. on the field, other than if they want to pick a different route, they're going to cause locker room problems, which there's been enough of that this year for Real Madrid. So I don't really think that they can play another way either. I think there's going to be goals in the second leg, and frankly, I still can't call it. Although I do think Graham on the Patreon earlier this week said I think he felt most confident about Bayern winning this tie. Bayern are a really good team, and I would favor them even without a goal advantage heading into the second leg.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll just echo everything Joe said. It could go any number of ways, that game. There have to be goals in it because Real Madrid are going to be chasing, obviously. They need the results. So I think they're going to kind of go out guns blazing and try to make something happen. And I don't think it makes sense for Bayern to try to sit off and absorb that. I think Real Madrid have enough talent and ability to eventually beat you if you do that, and then you've kind of thrown your game plan out the window and ceded control of the game, ceded momentum while you're at home. So I think it's going to be maybe more of the same with a little bit more game planning for how to try to nullify some of those fast break opportunities. I think you don't want to rely on Manuel Neuer making the 45 saves or whatever it was. I think Bayern similarly don't want to rely on Manuel Neuer's distribution, which was a little bit shaky at times. But generally speaking, I think this is going to be a pretty wide open game with even more goals.
Definitely so. And if I'm not mistaken, the winner of this game will play the winner of PSG Liverpool as well. So we could get PSG against one of these two teams as well. Or Liverpool, I suppose, there's still a chance. But,
so PSG it is.
PSG it is against.
I heard that in the broadcast as well. There was I forget what game it was. I guess it was the other one, where the announcer was like, and the winner of this has Arsenal waiting. And I was like, I think there's still one more game to play, no? They were just straight on to Arsenal have advanced. It made me check and make sure I hadn't missed a match or something like that.
Maybe they just meant the winner of life as Arsenal waited. They've been general about the whole situation.
It must be it.
That must be it. All right. Break time. When we come back, we're going to go to Spain and see how Atletico Madrid got one over Barcelona. Join us then. Total Soccer Show. Welcome back to our Champions League review. Let's take it to the Camp Nou, where Atletico Madrid got a rare win on this ground against Barcelona. A 2-0 win. A shock of the round, I think it's safe to say. Diego Simeone's first win at the Camp Nou as well. Julian Alvarez with an incredible free kick. Not too long after Pau Gabassi was sent off for Barcelona. Alexander Sorloth doubling the advantage as well. Taylor, I think it's safe to say the Kubasi red card was the turning point of this game for both teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's the red card, and then if you're a Barca fan, you have to feel very confused by what happens, because it's the sending off, which still feels harsh even if it's correct. But then you're thinking, but at least it's a free kick from outside the box. Very not likely to score this one. So then we just have to kind of see this out till halftime. Oh, Alvarez scored, and he hit a worldie and bent it in perfectly. Okay, so now red card and a goal. Sweet. And that really does completely change the face of this game. I think Atleti did a lot of Atleti things in this game, and I really appreciated it. I'm going to guess Barcelona fans did not. But this still felt even 11v10 with Atleti having the man advantage. The whole second half felt like they were kind of under siege, even though they score another goal, and this finishes 2-0. There were so many opportunities for Barcelona in the first half before the red, and even after that red card. It's another one where I think the second leg is going to be fascinating, because I'm not sure Barcelona are physically capable of keeping a clean sheet, and simultaneously will need to get goals. So maybe it's 2-0, maybe it's 5-4. Either way, it's going to be nuts.
Yeah, this was not at all how I expected this game to play out. Although maybe after watching these two teams play over the weekend, we should have expected some carnage to impact this game, because that's now two matchups in a row between these two teams where we've seen that sort of thing. This was just the most athletic game ever. I mean, it's classic Atletico Madrid, which is to say they defend quite deep for most of the match. You have them not creating a ton of chances the other way, but them keeping the margins relatively fine against a team with more quality attacking talent who likes the game to be more open in Barcelona, and capitalizing on those narrow margins in a way that sent them to the win. I mean, that was the story of this game, where really Atletico Madrid created nothing in the first half. I mean, they created very, very little. That's not entirely true, but they created very, very little. And Barcelona were finding chances in a relatively easy fashion. And then that red card happens, and it genuinely changes the entire game. I'm not a referee. I think the red card seemed reasonable. Simeone was the last man. Kubarsi brought him down. I don't know. Feels like that made sense to me. And then Alvarez steps up and does exactly, Taylor, what you said. And then the second half, Barcelona have a bunch of the ball, and they do still manufacture a few chances, even down a man, after a couple of halftime changes from Hans-Dieter Flick. But he looked, in the first half, Flick looked pleased on the sideline. I mean, he looked perfectly happy with what he was seeing, and I don't blame the guy, because Barcelona were in control, they were creating chances, until just everything changed with that red card. So if you're Atletico Madrid, you are absolutely thrilled with this result because I don't think you look and say, wow, we were the better team. You think we did just enough. And if that's not Atletico Madrid, I don't really know what is.
Joe, you mentioned that red card being reasonable. Is it possible to be reasonable and also feel quite harsh? Because obviously Kabasi's sort of running, and it looks like he tries to jump out of the way as well. It doesn't look like he's not lunging. Obviously, it's a foul. He impedes the attacker. But it does feel like a red. It doesn't feel like the punishment fits the crime in that circumstance to me. Maybe I'm just soft on these things.
I think that's fair. In some senses, the punishment doesn't fit the crime on penalties inside the box, right? Because if you foul somebody just inside the corner of the 18-yard box and they get a penalty, odds are low that they were going to manufacture a chance of that quality on their own in the next few seconds after they had been in that position if the foul hadn't occurred. The thing that I just can't get on board with that sentiment is if we just talked about how much we loved the the Real Madrid Bayern Munich game, because it was attacking and free-flowing, you can't just let defenders clatter into attackers and not punish them for it, right? You have to de-incentivize that stuff happening as much as possible to create as much free-flowing attacking play as you can. And I recognize that red card sort of made this particular game less enjoyable as a result, unless you're an Atletico Madrid fan, in which ignore what I just said. But in general, I think you have to have the punishments be sharp for those kinds of moments. Otherwise, the game is going to get worse.
Letting defenders clatter into players, Joe, is the name of the Atleti Academy that is named after Diego Simeone. How dare you?
My bad.
I love that team so much. I will say the red card moment, like this is where Giuliano, is it Giuliano or Juliano? Either way, Simeone's son, who's getting better and better, I swear, is becoming a player that I really enjoy and also maybe simultaneously dislike. If it's like anybody else for Atleti, I'm like, yeah, that's definitely like a red card. Got to be sent off. Like if that's Lookman running in, but when it's Simeone, I'm like, what did you do? How did you find a way to make him make contact with your feet? Because he has that dark arts about him. This whole team does, and that gets me to my random point. Ryan, do you remember when Arteta hires the pickpocket for the Arsenal preseason to show them like you've got to be alert at all times? Simeone, by contrast, I feel like hired a lecturer on plausible deniability and then an acting coach on how to pretend like you didn't just murder somebody. Atleti are the best team in the world at this. Griezmann does it so often. If you just keep your eye on him in the next game, he runs into people all the time, and it's always off the ball, and it's always when the referee isn't looking, and it always looks for the moment like, oh, he was trying to make a run and maybe didn't know that guy was there. He absolutely knows he's there. They do it so frequently that there's just a little knock, a little bump, they'll stop running, like when a person's trying to get past them, and then that person will run into them, and they're not even selling it. It's just, I think, to annoy. It's just to unsettle and put Barcelona off their game. And anytime you're knocking a person over or bumping into them and making them stop what they're doing to look at you like, why did you do that? They're no longer paying attention to the game. And it's so effective when done so consistently, but on such a minor level that I like have begrudging respect for it. And the only other player I've ever seen do it as well as so many Atleti players do is Antonio Rudiger, who I watched do the stop in front of a player 3 different times in the Bayern game. And I'm now convinced that if Rudiger ever joins Atletico Madrid, there will be this like Super Saiyan merging and they will reach their final form of just pure housery. And I really need it to happen.
There was a moment in this game, only about 10 minutes after the penalty, which they spent a long time on the CBS analysis after the game on, but I didn't actually notice it during the game. So it's Atleti's goalkeeper passes the ball to Marc Pubil inside the box. Pubil picks it up and places it down again and takes the goal kick himself, which is very much a handball in its own area. So this one was an interesting one because...
Plausible deniability in acting classes. Oh, I didn't know I couldn't do that. I'm so sorry.
Me? No, it's the sort of thing we've seen called up a few times. I think Tyrone Mings for Villa had it a little while ago, where a penalty's given against you for that kind of thing. And if it feels like common sense prevailed in this instance, but I feel also that Atleti got away with one a bit in that because the referee had every right to give a penalty there.
It's live by the housery, die by the housery, right? Because that is the other side of the coin, is then you do get that called against you. You do get the red card they get the first time they meet earlier in the week. And then the whole narrative is like, you guys weren't up to it. You guys couldn't play at that level. So like it can work to your advantage. But on the flip side, if a ref gets annoyed with you enough, they're going to make that call and now you are in trouble. And then you have a different talking point and a different angry Simeone, who is angry no matter what, lest we forget. The first goal... That free kick is incredible. It is so well struck. like even Madrid supporters behind the goal, you can see in slow motion having the reaction of like, wow, that's a good goal. And then we cut to Diego Simeone as the entire bench is erupting, who looks as though he's, I don't know, like contemplating having to still file his taxes. He just looks so displeased by what's happened. I guess that's how you become elite, is by never being satisfied and always pushing your team to the next level, or pushing them into other players, which maybe pushes them to the next level.
Oh, go, Ryan. Go.
I was going to say Alvarez didn't shove anyone while he's taking the free kick. Maybe that was the
problem.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry, Joe.
No, you shove yourself into the momentum for your run-up. I think that's classic free kick technique. We talked a lot about Atleti's housery in this game and sort of how classic a game this was. I do want to acknowledge some of their moments of quality in this match. I talked about how they didn't create a lot of chances. Alvarez did create probably their best chance of the first half, goal included. In the fifth or sixth minute, it's early on in this game when he goes forward and creates a shot against Barcelona's left side where he just dances his way into the box and creates a really high-powered shot. It's not a golden chance, but it's a pretty good chance. Elsewhere, he and Griezmann were playing in this really fluid front line, where in defense higher up the field, they were more in a 2, and then as they would drop back, you would see Griezmann shift maybe a little bit deeper, and Alvarez would be the lone striker, because you had Simeone dropping back to make a line of 5 for Atletico Madrid to deal with early on, at least. Barcelona's line of 5 before they went down a man, and then things changed a little bit. But you had Griezmann dropping back a little bit deeper, and he and Alvarez were really, really clever in some of the positions that they picked up to help Atletico Madrid break out of their lower block and transition into the attack. I think those two have just such a good understanding of each other, and they are such fluid, quality players who can play in a lot of different spots across the front line. I really enjoyed that from them. On the flip side of this game, Lamine Yamal was yet again the best player on the field in this matchup. There's no doubt about that. We talked about how he took Nico Gonzalez to task, and Gonzalez ended up not finishing that game that Atletico Madrid and Barcelona play over the weekend. In this game, it's Ruggeri who's playing as the left back for this team. It made no difference. Lamine Yamal was just as effective against him in some of these 1v1s. Where Barcelona could have found another level in the first half is Lamine Yamal's final ball was not what it's been. I think it was not what it was over the weekend. It's not what it's been for a big chunk of this season. He has this moment in the 5th minute where he dusts the defender, and then the pass just gets cut out. And then the 7th minute, almost the exact same thing happens. In the 12th minute, he's trying to find, I believe it's Eric Garcia sneaking in behind the back line, and they're just out of sync. And it's a turnover on that pass, and Atletico Madrid have the ball. That is where I think Barcelona can see themselves improve a little bit. They still created plenty of chances to win this game if the red card hadn't happened and if all the other stuff that happened in this game hadn't. They could have gotten something from this matchup. They did not, and if they really need to push the margins in the second game, which they do now that they're down a goal in terms of the actual run here, down 2 goals, that's where they think they can be just a little bit sharper. But Lamine Yamal was once again the most influential player on the field, and seeing how Atleti tried to deal with him, bringing 3, even 4 players over to that side, I think is going to present some opportunities for Barcelona in the second leg as well.
Agreed on Lamine Yamal being influential. I'm going to say the second most influential player, though, in this game for me was Antoine Griezmann, who just continues to be exceptionally good at everything he does. I am genuinely sad for him to be leaving Atleti at the end of the season, even if he's coming to Major League Soccer, because I don't know how they replace him. I don't know if they can. He is obviously instrumental to their attack. He's so good on the ball. He draws fouls. He creates opportunities. He pulls defenders in to then create space for other teammates. But defensively, he is routinely tracking way back. And even if he's not hard pressing and putting in tackles, he is routinely the one who recovers the ball and then transitions into attack, or at the very least alleviates pressure by carrying the ball forward or dribbling out of pressure from his own box. He is just all over the place. I didn't see his heat map, but I'm going to assume that or his touch map genuinely are all over the pitch, because he seemed involved in every aspect at every level, and that they're able to give him at least a brief rest. He doesn't play the full 90. I think it's only 80 or so. I guess that's good enough, but even when he's off the pitch, I feel like they are less functional as a unit, as a team. So him being able to play and be fully fit and ready to go for the next one will be critical if Atleti want to see out this result.
Definitely so. Taylor, obviously this one goes back to Madrid next week. What are the chances that Atleti completely refuse to play any soccer next week and they just shut up shop and try and protect their lead as much as possible? Is that what's going to happen?
Just literally park a bus, but then paint their images onto it. So it's no, that's us. That's the 11 players. But
we've seen them do it before.
Scoring. I don't know what I would do if I were Atleti. I mean, I think with what Joe's talked about with limiting Yamal, I think there were it made sense everything they did, and yet Barcelona will be kicking themselves. They had so many opportunities. They should have done more. They could have done more, and they have one in the back of the net that is called off for like the marginal offside in the first half, and that probably changes the way this game plays out. So I'm assuming Atleti will kind of do the 5-3-2 that becomes a 5-4-1 that we saw in this game. I'm assuming that they will bunker and try to frustrate, but as we saw this past weekend, if you do that too much and invite Barcelona onto you too much, they just have the talent as a unit, but then individually to beat you. So I really have no idea how Atleti go about kind of successfully suppressing Barcelona for the duration while still managing to get a goal, because I think they will need to score. They did it before. They've scored in the last 2 games. It's just that the scoreline of the first one makes me think that the scoreline of the second one might not be the way that it plays out, which is a very convoluted way of saying I still think Barcelona end up advancing, even with the red card to Cabarsi, meaning he's suspended, even with the goal difference being as it is. I still think they're going to score some goals and find a way through.
There we go. Delicately poised then as the Barca Atleti series continues next week. One more quick break from us. When we come back, we'll look at wins for PSG and Arsenal. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to our Champions League review. To Paris we go, where PSG had a 2-0 win over Liverpool. The current holders, obviously, with the 2-goal advantage. And look most likely to go through at this point, although, Anfield, traditionally a difficult place to go on a European night. Desiree Doué and a great individual goal from Kvicha Kvaratskhelia settling it for PSG, who also had a penalty overturned by VAR, penalty claim overturned, I should say. Joe, Liverpool failed to register an attempt on target in the match. I think it's safe to say they were completely outclassed by a brilliant PSG here.
Yeah, very much so, all the way across the board. I didn't realize that England still did European nights. I thought they stopped doing that. I'm a little confused by that.
I thought they voted to stop, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the deal is there.
It's going great, yeah.
Yeah, Ryan seems really happy about that whole situation.
We're not throwing stones over here.
No, it's still, still got to chuck some stones, Taylor, every once in a while. Makes you feel better. This was the most one-sided game of the round. If we started with the first game being the most open and the most entertaining, this game absolutely hits the superlative of being the most dominant one-sided matchup. PSG were better all the way throughout this game. I am not a shots on target appreciator as a statistic. I think it's kind of bogus. But you can still have the same effect by saying this stat. 0 shots at all for Liverpool in the first half, 3 in the second half, and all of them were either from outside the box or just barely inside the box. I mean, Ekitike, you could see it. I think it's 3 minutes into the second half. He realizes he has a half of a half of a half of a half chance just at the sort of the top of the box, and he realizes he has to hit it because Liverpool created nothing in the first half, and he did not seem to understand or didn't seem confident in thinking that he would have another chance at all in the second half. And based off of how this game went, I think that was a reasonable assessment of the situation from Hugo Ekitike. This was Liverpool, and it's always easy to say in hindsight. It seems like getting their approach wrong in this game. They were very reactive in this match. They were willing to sit quite deep for very long stretches, which is hard not to do that against PSG. Whether that was entirely intentional from Arne Slot and this Liverpool team, or whether that was them getting pinned deep because their press was not effective, I think it's probably a little bit of both of those things when you look at the personnel, and that Arne Slot went with a back 5 because you had all 3 of the Liverpool center backs starting in this game. So I think there clearly was some intent to sit deep and frustrate. At the same time, based off of how eagerly Liverpool pressed and how poor they were at it, I think there was then a knock-on effect of them having to get stuck deep. And then without, really, Ekitike was sort of playing left of center, and he was getting out-muscled really in this game a lot by PSG. There was just no outlet for Liverpool in this matchup, and they just did not create, between PSG being as efficient and effective as they are in possession, both in build-up and in more sustained possession sequences, both of which played into key moments for them in this game, and Liverpool just not being there. There was no contest here, really, for almost the entire match.
Agreed, on all accounts. And I would say there are 2 legit moments in the first 15 minutes in which Szoboszlai recovers the ball, maybe like 20, 25 yards from his own goal, and turns and is the furthest advanced Liverpool player, and basically is like, I got nowhere to go with this one. And I think once he's dispossessed and PSG have another attack from there, and then the second time he just kind of dumps it into the channel, and they try to alleviate pressure that way. But that was where in my notes I wrote down, I don't understand how Liverpool are able to alleviate pressure enough with this approach to then be able to kind of gain some control and then dictate play from there. It felt like they never had a rest. They were never able to kind of control large chunks of this game. It always felt like they were like trying to plug up the holes in the dam individually while other ones kept popping up, and just eventually that dam was going to break. And in that way, like, this sounds like damning with faint praise, and perhaps it is, but this is the same Liverpool team that, like, Virgil van Dijk talked about quitting against Manchester City, so that they don't kind of quit and fall apart. And it felt like maybe they were going to when the penalty is initially given, when it's overturned. I think that has a kind of huge impact on the momentum for Liverpool in seeing this one out, but it could have been much, much worse. PSG have multiple opportunities where normally I would expect them to have scored. They hit the post a few times, and they were all like pretty, I felt like, efficient chances. There wasn't a lot of kind of selfishness. There wasn't a lot of individuality with those misses. It was just sort of like, on another day, I think they probably finished those, and that other day might be coming next week at Anfield. I also want to spotlight that PSG midfield for a second. Zaire Emery was excellent on both sides of the ball, has an incredible engine, an incredible work rate. But the Vitinha João Neves thing is, like, I really think it is the prime reason why I think Portugal are going to win the World Cup. It's like Portugal or France for me. But those two in the middle, it's just unreal, because they are fine defensively. They are just going to hassle and harry and frustrate. But the way they combine just back and forth to open up space or to pull out defenders or just to frustrate and annoy with how quickly they're moving the ball, that then a defender is going to come running out, but now there's space open in behind. That's how the first goal, like, yes, it ends up being kind of a poke tackle that spills wide, and then Doué ends up collecting, turning, and shooting. But it is a 27 pass sequence where they move it from, like, they are right outside the box, or maybe even inside Liverpool's box, and work it all the way back around and move it around again until João Neves just turns and carries forward and makes a play. And that midfield can retain the ball, but it can also create on its own. It can also be defensively solid. I just think that they were excellent from start to finish in this game, PSG.
Yeah, definitely so. Joe, it feels like PSG are rounding into form in a very similar way than they did last season in the Champions League. I recall PSG in sort of the group stages, they got beaten by Arsenal, didn't they, when they looked pretty average, and then they just absolutely flipped a switch in the knockout stages. It feels like, Joe, they're kind of doing the same thing again. They've got, I don't think they've got a game this coming weekend, so they're going to be pretty fresh when they go to Anfield next week as well. It feels like the chips are falling nicely for the Parisians at the moment.
Yeah, Ligue 1 pulling a Norway here, right? Trying to give PSG as much time to focus on the Champions League as possible, which is hilarious to me. I think that is so funny. I mean, I guess everybody could do it, right? So fair enough. But I completely agree, Ryan. This PSG is, I think, pretty clearly the most well-rounded team that's still alive at this phase of the competition. They are...
Even in the competition, I was like, compared to like
all the ones that have fallen,
1968?
Taylor, of course.
Like,
yes, the fallen clubs we've left behind. They're just good at basically everything. I mean, maybe there's a small hole here and a small hole there. There probably are, but in possession, they're able to beat you with their build-up play. And Liverpool tried to press them in a quite man-oriented sort of way. It didn't really work. Desiree Doué has a shot in the 37th minute after Mendes gets in behind Konate in the press break. And Slot talked about coming into this game how he thought that they could try and press PSG really high, but every time that they did that, they just got ripped apart. And I thought that was a pretty real and accurate assessment of this press from Liverpool and the press breaking from PSG. Then if you go ahead and let them set up shop close to your own goal, they are as good as anybody in the world at creating chances against a lower block, and that's where the Kvaradona goal comes from in the 65th minute, where it's such a clever run from Kvaratskhelia, who withdraws from the front line. He waits for Mendes then to pull Konate out of position. Then he makes the run into Konate's space. Gravenberch is a little too slow to pick up that run. Van Dijk is a little too worried about Dembele, just left of center. And all of a sudden, Kvaradona has this nice little runway to walk down, basically. And then he rounds the goalkeeper and has the quality to finish off the move. So PSG have the team-wide cohesion, the off-ball smarts, and the on-ball quality to make those kinds of chances happen at a rate that so few other teams in the world can. That's just the attacking stuff. Then there's all the defensive stuff where they're not really super vulnerable defensively because most of their players work really hard. And Dembele recently has come out and talked about how they need to play as a team and need to play for the badge and not for themselves. That's what Chris Whittingham was talking about in the open of this game on the CBS broadcast. Sure looks like they're playing together to me. So, yeah, Ryan, I think your assessment is spot on. And this game was convincing. The one thing I will flag is Liverpool just really didn't show for this game. Like they just really, really did not show. And as a result, I think it's one of those things can be two things situation where we are all correct, I think, to be optimistic about what PSG can do in this competition. Also, if they'd played maybe any of the other teams that they could have played, any of the 6 other teams in this quarterfinal first leg, it would have probably been a tougher test for them.
Yeah, but I mean, I would agree with that. I think Liverpool, I don't think they got their tactics right. I don't think they were fully up for this one. At the same time, I think you can see like the psychological impact this PSG team can have when it comes to that opening goal. Because a hallmark, as I understood it, of like Jurgen Klopp pressing, but I think that extends to Slot's pressing, is you're hunting in packs, but you cannot have the diffusion of responsibility. That is a key thing, a clear thing. If 4 people go to close down, but none of them are sure who is meant to be the one who's actually stepping and becoming that first defender, you just have 4 people standing around a player, and it gives them an opportunity to find space and create options, or in this case, goals. Because that's what Doué does, basically, is he just controls away from goal, turns back inside, and there are 4 Liverpool players, all of them sort of trying to shepherd him, but all of them are trying to shepherd him, like, the wrong way. Like, none of them are working together, none of them are working as a unit, and no one is closing him down until he gets that shot away and it takes the deflection it does. So even there, it's a very heavily deflected shot, but it's heavily deflected because they're not closing down. They're not doing their defensive work the way we have come to expect Liverpool to do, and PSG benefit accordingly. To Joe's point, though, with Liverpool not turning up, I don't think I've ever seen this before, that I can remember at least. But if you go and check FOTMob, and I know that Joe doesn't love match ratings, and that is a very valid perspective to have. I'm not putting any stock in them. I'm just saying PSG are literally every single PSG player that started is green, and literally every single Liverpool player is orange. Like, it is pretty indicative that everybody for PSG showed up and played well, and everybody for Liverpool did the opposite of that.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Actually, Kvaratskhelia is blue because he got an 8.5. He's a step above green.
I'm not gonna put any stock in him, but I am gonna use it to make this point that I'm gonna make. That's all.
It's more so just that, like, that's such a crazy optic that, like, I've never seen before. Like, I went and checked the other games and other games from this weekend. None of them look like that. It's
Never
just
seen
a very
that.
like, okay, so one of them is pretty obviously good, and one of them is not so much.
Yeah. It's an interesting time for Liverpool as well, isn't it? Obviously having a humbling experience in the FA Cup over the weekend. It looks like they're going out of the Champions League. They're hanging on for Champions League qualification in the Premier League, but they lose a game or 2 more under Arne Slot, and I imagine Xabi Alonso is measuring the curtains at the Anfield training ground pretty quickly. So
Just if he's not already, like, with a fake mustache on, like, no, I'm a janitor. Don't worry about it. Don't ask questions. Can I have this desk?
What does measuring the curtains mean?
he's moving in, Joe. I think he's moving in.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's not a fun run for them. It's Liverpool have Fulham at home this weekend. Then it's home to PSG, away to Everton. That's tricky. Home to Palace, which can itself be tricky. Then it's away to Manchester United, home to Chelsea, away to Villa to round out the season. That's a tough run of games. Luckily, they have Manchester United away to give them a reprieve, so that's nice.
Yes, traditionally a reprieve, the Liverpool Man United game, as history is. Very good. All right, one more game to get to from the European week. Sporting 0, Arsenal 1. Kai Havertz with a late strike to give Arsenal the advantage. Their first win in 3 matches, this was as well. So back into form, I guess we could say. I don't know how much we want to talk about this one, Joe. Not exactly a vintage Arsenal win, but hey, it was a win.
I like. He wanted to just talk about the FOTMob's ratings, I think.
Well, yeah. Should we say that for a full? Like, we could do a full show on that. At this point, I don't think we can give it enough.
Sure.
Really,
Cool.
For me, the Arsenal performance was the performance that the lineup always said it was going to be. When you look at this team and you think about how Mikel Arteta has liked to play, 4 big lads across the back line. You have Madueke on one wing. You have Trossard on the other wing. Between injuries and personnel selections from Mikel Arteta, this is just not anywhere close to the most attacking lineup that Arsenal could generate. And that's fine, right? They are a team that is built on having control and wanting to maximize every single set-piece opportunity and trying to minimize every chance the opposition can get. And they didn't really allow a whole lot of chances in this game. They outcreated Sporting, although margins were very, very thin. And they played for a close, controlled result on the road, and they got it. So ultimately, this worked to their favor. They nailed basically everything in this game that I think they would have wanted to. It was just a tough game. Like, they just didn't manufacture a whole lot of chances. And I can't say I was terribly surprised by that in the grand scheme of things. I think some measure of credit is due to Sporting in this game for how they defended, where they're in this sort of 4-4-2 mid-block shape, but it shifts and alters because they were quite man-oriented in their defending. So Arsenal didn't have a lot of easy lanes to exploit in some of those spaces. And then when they got into a low block Sporting, they dropped into this back five to match Arsenal's front five, and that's pretty standard fare at this point when you're defending in a low block, because everybody basically on the planet attacks with this line of five in the final third. But Sporting were disciplined. I think they were pretty effective, and when that goal from Kai Havertz finds the back of the net, man, you've got to be heartbroken. You've got to be absolutely heartbroken, because I think you can imagine a world in which this game ends up 0-0, and you have a chance to cross your fingers and hope and pray in that second leg. And I feel for Sporting a little bit that didn't happen here.
Yeah, I agree with all that, Joe. I do feel similar to Liverpool that they also, like, with that game plan, were so focused on defending Arsenal and limiting their opportunities, justifiably so. They're a very good team, that they don't really put themselves in a position where they can have those minutes, like those 10 to 15 minutes where you're possessing and kind of taking control. And at home in a Champions League knockout round game, that's what you need. You need those moments where the crowd gets picked up and they start to believe, and you get some attacks and you get some chances, and then maybe you take one and maybe you get that goal. It felt routinely like Sporting were trying to either dribble the ball 70 yards forward or boot it long and just give Arsenal possession again, but then reestablish kind of their defensive shape and then kind of keep holding on. And with that in mind, it's a credit to Sporting that, like, they do it as well as they do. But it's also a credit to Arsenal, because at a certain point, I really was like, I've seen this game before. This is 0-0. Arsenal are kind of going to be content for this to finish as it is and back themselves to go home and just completely dominate and get like a 3-0 win or a 3-1 win or something like that. So that they do end up finding a way through was unexpected to me, even if it felt like a thing that should happen based on the number of opportunities and the chances created. So it's a credit to Arsenal in that way, I think, especially given their semi-run of form or poor run of form, that they're able to kind of find a way to win in what was an important win and an important time to find that win.
Yeah, if we're gonna do the Sporting side of this, I think you're spot on, Taylor, with what you're talking about in their game plan, not really letting them have some of those moments to control the game and to push for chances of their own with some possession sequences. Yeah, there is a butt coming. I just want to acknowledge how absolutely insanely difficult that is to do against Arsenal, right?
Yeah.
And to do against a team that has the talent that they have, right? Maybe it's less of a game plan thing, although I do think that is legitimately part of it with how Sporting's set up. It's also just a personnel thing, right? I mean, when you have the players that Sporting have, you're not going to be able to go out and have that 15 minutes. I mean, 15 minutes is a sixth of a soccer game. Like that is so difficult to do. I'm not saying that Sporting will need to have some of those moments in the second leg, right? If they didn't come in the first leg, they're going to have to come in the second leg down a goal. They need to find chances somewhere. I just think it's a pretty reasonable approach when you enter this kind of game to say, we would really like to get out of this at an even scoreline and hope and pray for the second leg. I mean, I don't know that I would come up with something that is really all that much more involved than that if I'm Sporting. Obviously, you got to nail the defensive details, and they did a lot of that well in this game. Just, do you really want to open yourself up, and then all of a sudden you're down 2-0 in the second leg, and that game is just done? The tie is done? It's just really hard. That's my point. I don't think you're wrong, Taylor, in what you're saying. We just have to recognize that Arsenal is designed to make you think about the game in that way and to make you think that you could have done something different. And when you look at the talent, it's just not as easy as it sounds.
That's fair. That is very fair. And this is definitely like an armchair Monday morning quarterback.
Hey, it's comfy in that armchair. I like it.
Really
I'm in an armchair literally right now.
I'm not making high profile mistakes in front of a global audience. Just a regional audience.
Yeah. Fairly big.
But I think you're totally right. I think what I tend to think, though, is that, like, with a team like Arsenal, you want to just cause them problems. You want to make them have to think about things you're doing rather than they're just going to keep grinding and finding ways to attack, and you're not really disrupting that. If you can throw in the monkey wrench of, like, oh, now we're attacking down this side and we're overloading here, so maybe Arsenal then have to, like, adjust what they're doing and keep somebody back. Like, if you're pulling them out of shape just a little bit or making them slow down to consider what you're doing, you're taking some of that focus off. They're not 100% focused on finding a way through and playing their game. So anything you can do to disrupt, I think, is going to be to your advantage.
Yeah.
But Joe is then correct that, like, disrupting a team like Arsenal is incredibly difficult and oftentimes leaves you vulnerable to being just carved open, and then you're 1-0 down in the 20th minute instead of the 70th or 80th or whatever it was.
Yeah,
90 plus 1. There it is. My mistake.
And that's what the good teams do, is they basically give you impossible decisions to make. Like, do you want to sit deep and defend against Arsenal, who have a player like Kai Havertz to bring off the bench and also Martinelli to come and combine for a goal? Cool, that sounds like a lot of fun. Oh, you want to go and extend yourself and give Arsenal a team that is not the best maybe at creating chances against low blocks? You want to give them an even easier path to creating chances and actually play into their strengths other than their weaknesses? Cool, yeah, that sounds good too. I mean, there's just not good choices in these kinds of games. Honestly, my last thought on this game, because it wasn't a great game, is Kai Havertz. Dude's really good. You know, I think it is pretty clear at this stage, I'm just trialing this take ahead of next season, that he needs to be the go-to option instead of Victor Gyökeres. There's been some fitness issues, obviously, this season, of course. But Billy Carpenter, who is writes about Arsenal, he is, I think, the best team-specific writer in the soccer world. He does a fantastic job. His cherry-picking stat, so it is definitely cherry-picked, was that before this game against Sporting, Arsenal are 6 wins, 0 losses, 0 draws. If Kai Havertz plays more than 10 minutes at striker, make that 7 wins, 0 losses, 0 draws.
All right, very good. My key observation, by the way, from this game was that I don't like Arsenal playing in blue.
Yeah. Seconded.
It's
You already had a primary color. You can't have another one.
Yeah, I mean they've had classic blue shirts for an away strip in the past, but I don't think it doesn't work for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, fully agree. And then I was only okay with it because they weren't playing another blue team. If they had been playing Porto, it would have been a problem for me because the whole time I would have been like, man, Porto are doing so. Oh wait, that's Arsenal. Arsenal are wearing the blue. Got it.
Did Arsenal have to wear their away shirts?
Sure. Joe, you had big thoughts on this, right?
Yeah, yes, they had to. It was the law.
Good. All right, I'm glad we cleared that up. Very good.
Graham's just flipping the table on vacation as we're talking about kits and what people have to wear.
Well, actually, it's his family. He's hostage to this whole situation. He doesn't really care for the soccer. He's just made to watch it by his family. That's been established. There we go. And that is the first round of Champions League quarterfinals. And what a great slate. 75% of them were. We'll be back next week with the second leg of these ones. But for now, Taylor Rockwell, thank you very much indeed for your contributions.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you very much, Delari.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you, listener, for joining us on this one. We'll be back on the feed very shortly indeed. But for now, bye.